Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on today's webinar, ServiceNow, How to Ensure Data Privacy. My name is Norv Leong. I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing here at NextLabs. And before we get started, I want to get a few housekeeping items out of the way. So first off, all the lines have been muted, but feel free to submit your questions via the Q&A or chat box that you see on your screen. We've actually set aside some time to answer those questions at the tail end of the webinar. Secondly, this webinar is being recorded, so we'll send you a link to the recording within a day or two after the conclusion of the webinar. So with that, let me get started here. So here's a little sneak peek at what we'll be covering today. We'll kick it off with a short intro on NextLabs, who we are, what we do, and we'll follow it up with some key customer challenges that we're seeing in the marketplace with respect to ServiceNow. This will segue nicely into a demo of our Entitlement Manager for ServiceNow solution, which will be the meat and potatoes of this webinar. So the live demo will be given by my colleague Jason Hammond. And finally, time permitting, and I think we will have time, we'll answer the questions that get submitted during the course of the webinar. So without further ado, let's dive into this. Start off with some background information on NextLabs. We were founded 15 years ago here in Silicon Valley, which we still count as our headquarters today. In that time, we've since expanded our offices to include the UK, France, Germany, Malaysia, Singapore, and China. Our customer list, as you can see in the upper right-hand corner, is a veritable who's who of the Fortune 500, spanning a number of different industries, including aerospace and defense, manufacturing, financial services, pharma, among others. So we've built a strong ecosystem of partners, ranging from SAP, Microsoft, Amazon, to large global systems integrators like Deloitte, Accenture, and Infosys. We've also partnered with organizations like NIST to help establish the standards for technologies like dynamic authorization and attribute-based access control. So this deep expertise is reflected in our patent portfolio, where we've got over 60 awarded and another couple dozen or so pending. Now, given the need to utilize data effectively to run a business, many organizations are faced with a common challenge. How do I go about managing access to my business critical data while still keeping it secure and within compliance? Ultimately, customers, they have to reconcile their business objectives with their security and compliance mandates. It's a balancing act, if you will. So on one side, you've got the need to share information within a company or perhaps with partners outside of it to get things done. Maybe you're part of a supply chain where you have to share design plans with upstream or downstream partners. Collaboration at the end of the day is the name of the game, but you have to balance that against protecting the crown jewels too. So you want to share only that part of the confidential data necessary for the task at hand. Which brings us to Entitlement Manager for ServiceNow. It's a solution that enables organizations to achieve that balancing act that I just talked about. So on the one hand, employees can access the areas they need to within ServiceNow, while on the other hand, they're still able to safeguard that data and to do so without falling out of compliance with applicable regulations. So our solution for ServiceNow brings several benefits, which you see on your screen. First and foremost, we help secure your ServiceNow data. Secondly, we're able to enhance your business agility by enabling you to respond more quickly to changes in market conditions or perhaps even regulatory environments. Specifically, NextLabs automates much of the compliance and security management tasks, resulting in lower cost administration and much more streamlined monitoring, auditing, and reporting. So with that, I'm going to pass the baton to my colleague Jason Hammond, who will demo a few common use cases for ServiceNow. So Jason, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Norv. Yeah, this is Jason Hammond. I'm a principal sales engineer at NextLabs. Here's a brief description of the use cases we'll focus on in today's demonstration. Note that while our demo focuses on controlling access to view incidents in ServiceNow, the NextLabs Entitlement Manager for ServiceNow can also be used to control the ability to create, edit, and delete any ServiceNow object, not just incidents. So in our first use case, we'll be demonstrating how we can control privileged users' access to ServiceNow objects. Every enterprise using ServiceNow has system admins who need unfettered access to manage the ServiceNow system to ensure it runs to the enterprise's specifications and business requirements. But these system admins generally do not need access to the data inside of ServiceNow objects, such as incidents. Using NextLabs Entitlement Manager for ServiceNow, we can control even how a system administrator's access to the data inside of objects in ServiceNow, how that works. In use case number 2, we will demonstrate how we can control access to ServiceNow incidents classified as containing data subject to export control regulation. With an export control regulation such as the International Traffic in Arms Regulation, or ITAR, U.S. citizens located in the U.S. can see classified data, but users outside of the U.S. cannot see the data without a license. In our scenario, anyone with a vice president title will be able to view all unclassified incidents in the system, but only U.S. vice presidents can view incidents classified as ITAR. So we'll filter incidents classified as ITAR for users who aren't in the U.S. In use case number 3, we'll demonstrate how we can enforce segregation of duties to restrict access for authorized users to only the incidents applicable to their area of responsibility. In our scenario, any user with the title of compliance officer will be able to view incidents related to the compliance business service, but only those incidents created by users in the same department as the compliance officer will be viewed. In use case number 4, we'll demonstrate how we can dynamically control access to incidents based on the user's regional assignment and security clearance. In our scenario, IT managers will be able to view IT incidents for users in their region or country. IT managers with top secret security clearance will additionally be able to view incidents which have been classified with an incident severity level of high. These highly sensitive IT incidents have information in them which, if accessed by people without security clearance, could expose the enterprise to undue risk. Here's a brief view into the users in our demo environment and the attributes about them that we'll use to evaluate in our policies. In the demo, users will be allowed or denied access to ServiceNow incidents based on things like their title, their department, their location, or their security clearance level. In an actual deployment, there may be many more attributes which would be used to enforce policy. This is just a sample we're using for the purposes of our demonstration. The screenshot you're looking at now shows you NextLabs Policy Management as performed inside of our Policy Studio interface. Policy Studio is a web application that allows users to create and manage attribute-based access control, or ABAC, policies based on the Extensible Access Control Markup Language, XACML, standard. NextLabs Policy Studio enhances the extensibility and usability of the XACML standard by providing a compatible fourth-generation programming language, or 4GL programming language, layer we call Active Control Policy Language, or ACPL. Using ACPL, new policy statements, policy types, context, and obligations can be easily configured from a business perspective using business-driven language. In the example on this slide, you can see a policy developed in NextLabs Policy Studio, leveraging a subject component of IT managers, a resource component of incidents requested by users from the same country as the ServiceNow user, and action component of view. And these are all defined using business terms inside of the Policy Studio using ACPL. So let's jump into the demo. In our first use case, we're going to demonstrate how NextLabs can control access to ServiceNow objects for users with privileged access. So as you know, ServiceNow uses role-based access control out of the box in order to enforce its security. The way that's done is by assigning roles to users. For your system administrators, usually you're going to have an administrative role assigned to that user, which gives them the access that they need to manage the environment, but also gives them access to view objects with unfettered access. They can view any data that's inside of an object and inside of any object. So if you have objects that happen to have personally identifiable information or information that's subject to export control, your policies may be violated by a user such as a system admin with an administrative role. So what we're going to do is show you how we can allow the system administrator to manage the environment without giving them access to the data inside of incidents. So real quickly, this is just a view into the user profile of the system administrator. And what you can see down at the bottom is that they have the admin and security admin roles, which give them that super user or privileged user access inside of the ServiceNow system. Okay. So, back in here. Just get this started up here so I can get logged in. Here we are. Get back out. Okay, so as a system administrator, you can see here under the All Applications pane that I have access to all the different functions that are available inside of ServiceNow, a couple of which I've saved using favorites. One of the items that I saved as favorites is the view of all incidents. So in the upper right-hand corner, you'll be able to see I'm logged in as a system administrator. When I try to view all incidents, screen will refresh, and you'll be able to see that no records are returned to the system administrator. Without NextLabs Entitlement Manager for ServiceNow in this environment, system administrator would actually be able to list all of the incidents here and even go inside of them to see the data. So our second use case is about enforcing compliance for export control. What we're going to do is demonstrate control of access based on a user's title and their location. So in our example, vice presidents should have access to view all the incidents unless they're located outside of the United States. In that case, any incidents classified as having ITAR data should not be viewable, even for a user who has a VP title. In your actual deployment, you may have other attributes about the user, such as their citizenship or the country of incorporation for the company they work for, or even licenses that would be utilized in our policies. So exceptions can be made based on license assignment. This is an important use case for dynamic authorization because things like new licenses or where a person is located are attributes that can change often, and it's very, very difficult to manage role-based access control or any static access control mechanism with an environment that has attributes that could be changing often. As an example, export control licenses, new ones are issued all the time, and ones that have already been issued previously may expire. And it's hard to keep up with enforcing static access based on those licenses constantly changing. So in our demo environment here, we're going to show how a VP in the U.S. named Jim Ranzetti can view all of the incidents that are available in the system. Another vice president named Brian Ravel, who's based in Italy, is going to only be able to access a smaller number, 57 of the 60 incidents in the service, because 3 of the incidents are classified as ITAR. So with that, first of all, I'll just show you, this is just a screenshot of Jim Ranzetti's profile in ServiceNow user profile. You can see his title and department are listed here as Vice President of Sales. He's also based in country USA. And our user, Brian, is a Vice President, also in sales. So those attributes are the same about Brian, but his country is listed as Italy. And that's the thing that's going to trigger our filtering of the ITAR incident. So with that, we'll go ahead and impersonate Jim. When we log in as Jim Ranzetti, you can see in the upper right-hand corner that we're now logged in as him. So you can see he's got a large plethora of applications available to him. But what we want to do is see what incidents he has available to him. When we select all incidents, you can see here the list of incidents. And the upper right-hand corner shows that there are 60 total incidents that he has access to. In addition, we can see in the export control classification column, 3 of these incidents have ITAR listed as export control classification value. So we're going to be triggering some filtering based on that. So if we switch over to our user, Brian, Brian is also a VP, but again, he's based in Italy. And when he goes to look at all incidents, you can see now that there are only 57 incidents. And if we look at export control classification, none of the incidents have ITAR listed as an export control classification. So that's just evidence of the fact that we're filtering those values. Our third use case is about segregation of duties. So here we'll enforce segregation of duties based on a user's department. So in our scenario, compliance officers should be able to view incidents related to compliance functions. However, a compliance officer from the development department has no jurisdiction in the sales department and vice versa. Thus, compliance officers should only be authorized to view incidents based on their scope of responsibility, based on their department assignment. So in this case, they should only have access to view incidents in their own department and denied access to view incidents for other departments. Again, this type of policy can be very dynamic as users may move around between departments or they may change roles. ServiceNow customers want to provide access when it is needed, but need an automated way to remove or change access when attributes about users or objects, such as incidents, change. Using NextLabs Entitlement Manager for ServiceNow, it is possible to define policies that will enforce access in real time based on the current value of attributes about users and objects, not based on static role assignments, which may end up being out of date. So with our scenario here, you see we have two compliance officers, Don Goodlife. He's in the development department. He's going to see 3 compliance incidents opened by users in development. And we also have Naomi Greenlee. She is a compliance officer in sales. She's also going to see 3 compliance incidents, but these are incidents opened by users in the sales department. So it's a different department. And as evidence of this, you can see here in the user profile, Don Goodlife is listed as a compliance officer. His department is development. For Naomi, she's also listed as a compliance officer, but her department is sales. So what this looks like, we'll go ahead in ServiceNow and log in as Don. Okay. When Don goes to view all incidents, the incident list comes up. You can see only 3 incidents listed. Their numbers are INC 001, 0002, 3, and 5. You can see the users, the callers in this case, Don, Jared, and Fred. These are all callers who are based in the development department. And the business service here is listed as compliance, and that's what's authorizing Don to view just these incidents. He's not able to view incidents that are associated with any other business service. Again, that's based on dynamic authorization based on NextLabs policy. If we switch over to Naomi, okay, Naomi will log in. And you can see she also has access to 3 incidents based on business service of compliance. But you can see that the incident numbers, 52, 49, and 39, are different than the ones that Don was looking at, plus the callers are different. So you can see that we're triggering based on its match of the department of the administrator, Naomi, to the department of the callers, Bud, Beth, Bud and Beth, and the business service associated with the incident. So that's just a demonstration of enforcing segregation of duties. In our 4th use case, we're demonstrating how you can control access to sensitive incidents by restricting based on region or country assignment and security clearance. So as stated previously, ServiceNow customers want to limit access to incidents based on users' scope of responsibility. In this case, we want to limit IT managers to only being able to view incidents for the region or country that they have responsibility for. However, some of the incidents in our environment may contain classified information that requires an additional check to make sure the IT manager has the security clearance required to view the classified information. The incidents with this sensitive information are classified with a value in the incident sensitivity level attribute. That value is high. So NextLabs policy checks to make sure that the user has a security clearance of top secret before allowing access to view incidents with a incident sensitivity level of high. An IT manager without the required security clearance will only be able to view incidents that are not classified with a high sensitivity level. So in our scenario, we have 3 different users we're exercising. We have Darren Merlin. He's an IT manager based in the U.S., and he has a security clearance level of top secret. So he's going to be able to view the high sensitivity incidents. Bernard LeBoy is also an IT manager. He's also based in the U.S., but he has no security clearance. So he'll see all the same incidents that Darren does, except for the incidents that have been classified with a high incident sensitivity level. And then thirdly, we want to show how a different user, Kyle Lindauer, who's also an IT manager but is based in Germany, he can only see the incidents that are for users that are based in Germany. He won't be able to see the incidents that are opened by users based in the US. Just as an example of this, to show the attributes that are important for the scenario, we can see here in Darren's profile, he's an IT manager based in the USA, and you can see in the bottom right-hand corner the security clearance level is specified for him as top secret. For Bernard, same exact attributes. He's an IT manager. He's based in the US, but he has no security clearance level. And then finally for Kyle, he's an IT manager, but he's in Germany. Also doesn't have a security clearance level. So how this looks inside of ServiceNow. First, we'll go ahead and log in as Darren. Okay, now when Darren goes to look at incidents, you can see here he's got 36 incidents that are available to him. These are all IT-related incidents that are for users based in the US. And you can see over here on the right, 2 of these incidents have an incident sensitivity level of high. Again, these 2 are being exposed because Darren has top secret security clearance.
Hey, Jason, are you sharing your screen? I think it might have disappeared.
Saw something flash there. I don't know why it stopped sharing, but.
Yep, I can see it again. Thank you.
Thanks, Norv. Okay, so just to reiterate, we're logged in as Darren Merlin, IT manager in the US with top secret security clearance. So he sees 36 incidents for IT incidents for users in the US. 2 of these have an incident sensitivity level of high. Those are being exposed to Darren because he has top secret security clearance. So if we log in now as our user Bernard, again, Bernard is an IT manager. He's based in the US, but he has no security clearance. So when he goes to view all the incidents, he's only seeing 34 of them. They're all for users in the US, and you can see the incident sensitivity level is empty for these. So the 2 incidents that were listed with a high sensitivity level are being filtered from his view, explicitly based on his security clearance not being top secret. And then just to show the different experience for a user in different geography with exactly the same title. This user Kyle, based in Germany, but he's an IT manager. And when he goes to look at incidents, he's only going to see the IT incidents for users based in Germany, and there are only 2 of them in the system. Okay, and that's how we show dynamically controlling access incidents based on regional assignment and security clearance. And that's the final use case in our demo. Laura, back to you.
Yep, good stuff, Jason. Thanks for running us through those use cases. As expected, we do have a few minutes here to answer the questions that were submitted during the webinar. So just let me take a quick peek here. And, so there was a question, Jason, what kinds of attributes are available for this ServiceNow data?
Sure, yeah. In NextLabs Entitlement Manager for ServiceNow, we have access to all attributes that are available in the ServiceNow system, including any custom attributes which a customer may have used to extend their ServiceNow deployment. So we have no limitation. Any attribute that's available either about the users or about different objects, such as incidents or contacts or configuration, configuration objects inside of ServiceNow, all of those attributes may be utilized inside of NextLabs ABAC policies.
Got it. And then on the subject of policies, somebody else was asking, how easy is it to set policies? Do I need any scripting experience?
Yeah, there no coding experience is necessary. As I mentioned at the top of the session, we have a web-based administration interface that's based on a business language policy framework we call ACPL. And essentially, if you understand what the business requirement is relative to who the users are, what objects they need to have access to, what the attributes are that would trigger, allow, or deny decisions for those attributes, and which actions a user might need to take against those objects, such as create, edit, delete, or view. As long as you understand that, you can use the business-driven interface of our solution to define those policies. So no special coding experience is required. It's designed to be utilized by business users to define those policies.
Cool. Let me scroll. Another one here. Is it possible to use NextLabs to control the ability to create, edit, and delete incidents or other ServiceNow objects in addition to controlling the ability to view them?
Yeah, absolutely. Inside this demo, we really only showed you filtering and control of the ability to view incidents, but we can also control who's allowed to create new objects, and it's not just incidents, it can be any object in ServiceNow. We can also control whether you are able to edit or if you're able to delete those objects inside of ServiceNow.
Another one here. Are there other applications that you can support besides ServiceNow with this policy?
Yeah, it's a great
engine.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, the NextLabs policy engine is designed to be utilized across your enterprise. So it's not built only exclusively for use for enforcing ABAC policies in ServiceNow. As an example, we have out-of-the-box enforcers in addition to the one that we have for ServiceNow. We have out-of-the-box enforcers for SAP, for SharePoint, for Exchange. We even have a Windows desktop enforcer. And so there's a variety of different out-of-the-box integrations that we provide. The same exact policy infrastructure can be, and same exact policy set can be used to enforce ABAC policies across all those applications in addition to ServiceNow. On top of that, we recognize that a lot of our customers have custom applications. Maybe they built custom web or mobile applications, and we provide SDKs in Java, JavaScript, and .NET, which can be utilized to integrate with those types of applications, and again, use the same policy infrastructure and the same policy set to enforce policies for those applications as well.
Sounds like based on that answer, I think I know what the answer would be for this other question that somebody posed. We currently use some homegrown tools to manage ServiceNow security. Can NextLabs be deployed alongside our existing tools?
Yeah, absolutely. So even in the case of a generic ServiceNow deployment, ServiceNow's role-based access model is still in play. The out-of-the-box security model controls coarse-grained access. Can you log into the system? If you can log in, which functions are you allowed to access? Which applications inside of ServiceNow are you allowed to access? So that's kind of like the front door. And that's not replaced by us. That stuff is still in place and still functioning. What we do is we add on top of that to provide dynamic authorization based on attribute-based access control to control which objects you can interact with and what you're allowed to do with them, right? So viewing incidents and filtering which incidents are available is one example. Controlling the ability to create, edit, or delete those is another example. So we're additive on top of that and providing additional value and additional capabilities on top of that. If you happen to be using like an existing enterprise identity management system to provision access to ServiceNow, that doesn't need to change. You can still use that to provision who can get into ServiceNow. You can still use that to do role assignment, to provision what functions they have access to, what applications they have access to inside of ServiceNow. And then you can use us in addition to that to do fine-grained authorization to individual objects inside of the ServiceNow system.
Okay, got it. And it looks like these last few questions, you've kind of answered them already in one way or another, so I'm going to avoid the duplicates so we can just move on here. So, for those of you who are interested in getting some more information on NextLabs and our solutions for ServiceNow and other applications that Jason hinted at, feel free to visit our website or shoot us an email, and someone will get back to you right away. You can also find this actually on the ServiceNow App Store, that fourth bullet there, where you can get additional product details, even a little bit of pricing information, as well as sign up for a free trial. So with that, that brings us to the end of our webinar today. We want to thank you for joining us. As I mentioned at the start of the webinar, we'll be sending you a link to the recording. So if you didn't catch something the first time, you can replay the webinar at your convenience. And should you have any additional questions or need further clarification on anything, just shoot us a note and we'll get back to you right quick. So thanks again. We hope to see you on future webinars. Have a great day, everyone. And thank you, Jason.
Thanks, North.